All right. So good day, everyone. Let us begin our journey for midterm coverage. We are quite delayed in our pacing, but we hope that we can still recover and we can beat the school's deadline. Okay. So previously we discussed in our prelim coverage the introduction. We are done with the preliminaries, the PDs, the EOs, as well as the subject of construction. Specifically, we learned that statutory construction is focused on the statutes, the constitution, as well as the ordinances and the resolution. We are done with the Philippine Constitution. We are done with the statutes, at least the basic rules. Now, we are ready to discuss another subject of statutory construction, and this will be the first topic for your midterm coverage. This is about the um, ordinances and resolution. Okay? So, we learned previously that an ordinance is also a law. In fact, in the hierarchy of laws, ordinance is on the third level. It's the lowest part of the hierarchy, but it's still a law. Resolution, on the other hand, while it is not a law, please take note of that, it is just an expression of sentiments or opinions made by the legislative body, but we have also clarified that it is still a subject of statutory construction. So now we will be discussing ordinances and resolutions. Okay, both the ordinance and the resolution are acts passed by the local, please take note of that, local legislative body in the exercise of its lawmaking authority, which is delegated by Congress. However, again, please always remember that a resolution is not a law. Okay? It never has been. But despite that fact, it is still considered as a subject of statutory construction. Okay, before we continue, for you to better appreciate what we are going to discuss, I will give you a brief advanced overview of the law on public corporations. This is one of the components of political law. I think this is discussed in third year. Okay? I'm also teaching public corporations in other schools. And here, this is the subject which will discuss the local government units. Part of that discussion is the delegated lawmaking power of the local government units. So when you say public corporations, these are basically political subdivisions of the state. Okay, and we only have four. Okay, four subdivisions here. We have the provinces, we have the municipality, we have the city, and we have the barangay. All of these are public corporations, and all of these are local government units. Okay? So, in relation to our topic, these public corporations have been delegated a portion of legislative power, particularly to their local legislative councils. Ano bang ibig sabihin niyan? Ibig sabihin, yung pinag-aaralan ninyo ngayon, I hope that you are taking up Consti 1, and I think you have already discussed Article 6, or the legislative power, which is vested in the Congress of the Philippines. And we know that the Congress of the Philippines is composed of two houses, the House of Senate and the House of Rep. But your subject may have informed you that ang legislative power ng Kongreso, hindi lahat nandyan. Okay? Hindi lahat nandyan ang legislative power. In fact, merong reserved na legislative power yung people. Okay, and it is exercised by initiative and referendum. And the Congress also can delegate a portion of that legislative power to another entity. So, yan yung sinasabi ko. May portion dyan sa power na yan na binigay ang Kongreso para sa mga local government units natin. Ibig sabihin, the reason why a municipality, a province, a city, or even a barangay can make a law in a form of ordinance is because the Congress delegated a portion of that power to them. Okay? Ngayon, saan specifically binibigay yung delegated legislative power na yan? Binibigay yan siya doon sa local council. Okay, a local council is the local legislative body. It could be a sangguniang panlalawigan in terms of provinces. It could be a sangguniang panglungsod in terms of cities. It could be a sangguniang bayan in terms of municipalities. And it could be a sangguniang barangay in terms of barangays. So meaning to say, the law that they are enacting in exercise of the delegated legislative power is what you call an ordinance. Okay? Okay, so whenever they exercise this power, the law that they are enacting is that ordinance. But aside from that, they can also make a resolution. Okay, even if it is not a law, by virtue of the power delegated to them, they can also enact a resolution. Now, please take note of this. You may discuss this in your Consti 1 or Consti 2 and even in your public corporations later on. But I have to shed light on this as early as now that an ordinance, considering that it is lower in hierarchy, okay, meaning to say it cannot go beyond the parameters set by the statute. It cannot also go beyond the parameters set by the Constitution. Okay? So the Constitution is the primary law, and then the statute, which is the law enacted by the Congress, and then you have the ordinance. Since the ordinance is just a law, okay, a product of the delegated power given by the Congress, so it cannot go beyond the limits set by the Congress. So when can you say that an ordinance enacted by a local council, when can you say that it is a valid ordinance? Well, first, basically, you have to remember that it must not contravene the Constitution or a statute. Because, again, logically, it will tell you that it is lower in rank, it is lower in hierarchy. So, it cannot go beyond the parameters of the Constitution and the statute. That is why the first requirement here is that an ordinance must not contravene to the Constitution or to any statute. Second, it must not be unfair or oppressive. When can you say that it is unfair? When can you say that it is an oppressive act? It is the Supreme Court that can decide. Okay, it must not be partial or discriminatory. That will be in your Consti 2. It must not prohibit but may regulate trade. That will also be further discussed in your Consti 2 and Public Corporations Law. Okay, when you will discuss police power. It must be general and consistent with the public policy, and it must not be unreasonable. So those are the tests of a valid ordinance. Now, reason why an ordinance should not contravene a statute. Balikan natin yung number 1 kanina na test, na it should not contravene the Constitution and the statute. Ano nga yung reason natin bakit hindi pwedeng mag-contravene? Yun lang, balikan mo yung hierarchy of laws. While it is a law, it is lower in hierarchy because it is a product of a delegated power given by the Congress. Hence, it must not really go beyond what is set by the Constitution and by our statutes. Okay? So remember that local councils exercise only delegated. Okay, the term here is delegated, legislative powers conferred on them by the Congress as the national lawmaking body. So meaning to say, the delegate cannot be superior to the principal that gives that power. All right? So now it's time for us to discuss the basic enactment of an ordinance or a resolution. So basic lang po tayo because that will be further discussed in detail when you reach public corporations. The source here is found in your local government code, particularly section 54 up to section 59. Okay, of your local government code. Let's just run through the provisions. So it says here, section 54, every ordinance enacted by the local council. The local council could be Sangguniang Panlalawigan, Sangguniang Panglungsod, Sangguniang Bayan. Okay? Except barangay level. Yan yung sabi ng section 54, except barangay level kasi we will treat it differently. Shall be presented to the local chief executive. So sa probinsya, the local chief executive is the provincial governor. Sa city at saka sa municipality, you have the mayor. Okay, so the point here is that every ordinance enacted by the local council except barangay level shall be presented to the local chief executive. So parang same pa rin sa statute, di ba, na once na natapos na yung third reading and it's ready. Okay, tapos na yung bicameral committee na certify na siya, na authenticate na siya. Now it is transmitted to Malacanang for approval. Ganun rin dito. Kaya lang local setup. So once na-enact na siya, papunta na yan doon sa office ng local chief executive for approval. But what are the options of the local chief executive? Well, the local chief executive may approve, may disapprove, or may not do anything. The same thing with the president. Okay? So if he approves, then he shall affix his signature on each and every page thereof. But if he disapproves, meaning to say he exercises his veto power, and once he exercises it, he must return the same with his objections to the sanggunian which may proceed to reconsider the same. So ano bang ibig sabihin niyan? Kapag i-disapprove ng local chief executive yung nasabing ordinance, then pwede siya mag-exercise ng veto. But veto is not enough. It must be returned yung objections niya doon sa sanggunian. Can the sanggunian override the veto like the Congress? Because the Congress can override, di ba? Can override the veto power of the president. The answer here is yes. The sanggunian concerned may override the veto of the local chief executive by 2/3 vote of all its members. So all its members 2/3 vote of all its members, thereby making the ordinance or resolution effective for all legal intents and purposes. Please be careful of the term effective here because the effectivity here is not actually the effectivity of laws that we are talking about. Okay? We will clarify that later. Okay? So, meaning to say, kapag na-override niya, it is deemed approved. Okay? Pero kailangan ng 2/3. 2/3 vote. The 2/3 vote is based on all the members of the sanggunian. Now, remember that the veto shall be communicated by the local chief executive concerned to the sanggunian. May time period dito. Kapag provincial level, 15 days. Kapag city or municipality, shorter period, 10 days. Okay? Pag hindi yan nagawa ng local chief executive, then it is deemed an inaction on his part. Meaning to say, walang ginawa. The presumption is that wala siyang ginawa. At dahil wala siyang ginawa, the ordinance shall be deemed approved as if he signed it. Okay? So, remember that with respect to barangay level, they can also make an ordinance because the Congress also delegated a portion of their legislative power to barangay level. Kaya lang, sineparate kasi siya. Nasa last paragraph siya ng Section 54. It says there that ordinances enacted by the sangguniang barangay shall, upon approval by the majority of all its members, be signed by the punong barangay. This means that the punong barangay has no veto power. Okay? Among all the local chief executives, only the punong barangay does not possess veto power. Okay? Because once the sangguniang barangay approves it by a vote of majority, then it is already deemed approved. And walang option dito ang punong barangay kundi pirmahan yung ordinance. Okay. Let's proceed to Section 55 because it is related to veto power of the local chief executive. Remember that the veto power is only possessed by, with respect to local setup, with respect to local setup, the veto power is only possessed by the local chief executive in the province, municipality, and city, but not in the barangay. Okay. And whenever they exercise veto power, the ground is also limited. Under Section 55, the grounds are, number 1, when it is ultra vires. Number 2, prejudicial to the public welfare. Okay? So, yan. On the ground that it is ultra vires. Number 2, prejudicial to the public welfare. Can the veto be done orally? The answer is no, because Section 55 is clear. The same with other veto power. Even the president, when the president exercises veto power, it is not orally made. Okay? Sabi ng Section 55, it must be in writing. And there, it must state his reason. He must state his reasons bakit niya i-veto. Okay, so letter B, the local chief executive, except the punong barangay, shall have the power to veto any particular item or items. Okay, so have you discussed already in your constituent this concept of item veto in Article 6? Okay, so ito yung counterpart niya sa local setup. The local chief executive, except the punong barangay, because the punong barangay does not have veto power in the first place, shall have the power to veto any particular item or items. But can the local chief executive exercise this kind of power, itong tinatawag na item veto power, sa lahat ng ordinances? The answer is no. How about sa lahat ng resolutions? The answer is also no. Because it is very clear in Section 55, Paragraph B, that only with respect to appropriations ordinance. That's one. Also, an ordinance or resolution adopting a local development plan and public investment program. That's 2. And 3rd, an ordinance directing the payment of money or creating liability. So those ordinances and resolutions are the only ordinances and resolutions that can be vetoed partially, or tinatawag nating item veto or partial veto. Okay? In such a case, the veto shall not affect the item or items which are not objected to because hindi naman lahat binito. Okay? So for a while class, I will just have to set up my charger because my battery is warning me already. For a while. I'm about to... my battery is already low. So sorry for the interruption. Okay, by the way, I'm working at home and I really want to deliver my topics, okay, and to finish this subject. So, yan. We are now ready. So, going back to item veto, iba siya sa veto na general rule because generally when the local chief executive or even the president sa constituent ninyo, when they exercise veto, a portion of veto is a veto of everything. Meaning to say, walang partial veto as a general rule except itong tinatawag na item veto. Okay? Very particular rin ang Consti 1, okay? With respect to ano lang ang klaseng statute ang pwedeng or anong klaseng bill ang pwedeng i-item veto. Okay? Ganun rin dito sa local chief, sa local setup. The local chief executive has a very limited exercise of item veto. It can only do so, or they can only do so with respect to appropriations ordinance or resolution adopting a local development plan and public investment program. Number 3, an ordinance directing the payment of money or creating liability. So, yun lang ang pwede mong i-item dito. If hindi yan siya mahulog doon sa tatlo, once the president or once the local chief executive vetoes a portion thereof, it means veto everything. Okay? So, yan, damay yan lahat. Pero kapag dito siya na mga ordinances or resolution, kung yung portion na yan lang yung vinito ng local chief executive, then hindi madadamay yung ibang portions. Kasi nga, item veto ang in-exercise this time. So, sabi nga dyan, in such a case, the veto shall not affect the item or items which are not objected to. The vetoed item or items shall not take effect. Okay? Unless what? Unless the sanggunian overrides it again. Okay? Every time that the local chief executive vetoes it, pwede siyang i-counter ng sanggunian by override. Okay? And the override is 2/3 of all the members. Okay? So, yan. Now, what if ang nangyari is that walang override na nangyari? Okay? Hindi nakakuha ng 2/3. We are now on paragraph B of section 55. What will happen? Tapos, this is about budget or this is about appropriations. Paano yan? Ang sabi ng batas, the item or items in the appropriations ordinance of the previous year corresponding to those vetoed, if any, shall be deemed reenacted. Yan yung effect niya. Okay? So, how many times can the local chief executive veto an ordinance or a resolution? Only once. Okay? And every time that the local chief executive exercises that power, the sanggunian may, hindi natin sinasabing shall, hindi, may override the veto of the local chief executive by two-thirds vote of all its members, thereby making the ordinance effective even without the approval of the local chief executive concerned. The same way with what you learned in your Consti 1. Once na nag-override yan siya, nakaabot sila ng two-third vote sa isang house and two-third vote sa isang house, hindi na yan mababalik pa doon sa presidente. It's automatic approved. Okay, ganun yun. Alright? Now, have you taken up the topic in your Consti 1 regarding judicial review? Okay? Because our next subtopic has something to do with it. And in fact, the next topic also, the next topic after this will also be related to that. This is with respect to Section 56. This is the review of component city and municipal ordinances or resolutions by the Sangguniang Panlalawigan. It is also related to Section 57. Section 57, on the other hand, is the review of barangay ordinances, okay, by the Sangguniang Panlungsod or Sangguniang Bayan. So Section 57 applies to ordinances of barangay. Okay? But Section 56 refers to the ordinances and resolutions of component city and municipal ordinances. How about an independent city? Meron pa bang ganito? The answer is wala. Okay? Only the component city and the municipalities. Okay? Yung mga ordinances nila, ordinances at saka resolutions, kailangang ma-review ng Sangguniang Panlalawigan. With respect to barangay, kailangan bang i-review? The answer is yes. Okay? Saan mo ipapa-review? Either sa Sangguniang Panlungsod, if it is a city, or Sangguniang Bayan, if it is a municipality. Okay. So, let us run through together Section 56 and 57 para ma-compare agad natin. Okay. Sabi dyan, okay, let's go first with Section 56. Within 3 days after na-approve yung ordinance or yung resolution, the Secretary of the Sangguniang Panlungsod, in case of a component city, or the Secretary of the Sangguniang Bayan in terms of the municipality, okay, shall forward to the Sangguniang Panlalawigan, okay, this is the local council of the province. So, ifo-forward ngayon ng secretary ng nasabing sanggunian ang na-approve ng mga ordinances at na-approve ng mga resolutions papuntang Sangguniang Panlalawigan. And the purpose there is for review. Okay? So ano yung ita-transmit? Ano yung ifo-forward? Copies of the approved ordinances and the resolutions. Okay? The resolutions here approving the local development plans and public investment programs formulated by the local development councils. Yun lang na resolutions. Okay? Ordinances, kapag approved, no problem. But with respect to resolutions, not all resolutions. Only resolutions approving local development plans and public investment programs. Okay? Now, what is the counterpart of this paragraph sa Section 57? Section 57, on the other hand, hindi 3 days lang. Ang sinabi dyan, within 10. Okay? Within 10 days after na-enact yung barangay resolution or barangay ordinance, ordinance lang, the sangguniang barangay, it does not state here secretary, it's the sangguniang barangay shall furnish copies of all barangay ordinances. Hindi mo na isali ang resolution. Ordinances lang. To the sangguniang panlungsod, okay, in case of a city, or sangguniang bayan in case of a municipality. For what? For review. Okay? For review. So meaning to say, same, review. Ano yung purpose? Bakit i-review natin? Okay? With respect to ordinances and resolutions of the component cities and municipal ordinances, kailangan i-review yan siya ng sangguniang panlalawigan to determine what? To determine, ang sagot dyan ay nasa paragraph D ng section 56. The review is to determine whether the said resolution or the said ordinance is consistent with the law and therefore valid. Okay? Yan yung purpose dyan. Pero sa section 57, ganun rin ba yung purpose ng review? More or less, parang ganun rin. Kasi sabi ng section 57, paragraph A, for review as to whether, yan yung issue dyan sa review, whether or not the said barangay ordinance is consistent with law and city or municipal ordinances. Okay? So, yan. So, yan yung purpose ng review. Ngayon, balikan natin yung sa component city at saka municipal ordinance or municipal level. Okay? Diba, sabi natin, may duty ang secretary nila na within 3 days, i-transmit i-forward yung kopya ng approved ordinances and resolutions, yung particular resolution, i-submit or i-forward sa sangguniang panlalawigan. Okay? Ngayon, pagdating doon sa sangguniang panlalawigan, once the sangguniang panlalawigan receive the copies of the said ordinances and resolutions, within 30 days, kailangan may action na. Okay? Within 30 days, after the sangguniang panlalawigan receive the copies of the said ordinances and resolutions, the sangguniang panlalawigan shall examine the documents. Okay? Pwedeng ang sangguniang panlalawigan mismo ang mag-e-examine, okay, or magre-review. But can that power of review be delegated to somebody else? The answer is yes, it can. Okay? So, pwede niyang i-transmit further yung documents na yan sa provincial attorney. Okay? Or kung walang provincial attorney, then sa provincial prosecutor for prompt examination. So, further delegate niya ang power na yan. And the said provincial attorney or the provincial prosecutor shall, within a period of 10 days from the moment they receive the copy, okay, the lawyer, the provincial attorney or the provincial prosecutor shall inform the sangguniang panlalawigan in writing of his comments or recommendations, which may be considered by the sangguniang panlalawigan in making its decision. So, hindi bound ang sangguniang panlalawigan to really observe the recommendations or comments of the provincial attorney or provincial prosecutor. Now, at the end of the day, it's still the Sangguniang Panlalawigan that will decide. So if the Sangguniang Panlalawigan finds that such an ordinance or resolution is beyond the power conferred upon the Sangguniang Panlungsod or Sangguniang Bayan concerned, it shall declare such ordinance or resolution invalid in whole or in part. So this is quite peculiar because we learned that basically it's the court that declares a particular law um, invalid or valid. Okay? Because ito yung sinabi dito na it's the sangguniang panlalawigan that will declare the said ordinance or the resolution valid or not. And the validity or invalidity may be in whole or in part. Okay? The presumption is that it's valid. But once it is declared invalid, it may be in whole or in part. The Sangguniang Panlalawigan shall enter its action in the minutes and shall advise the corresponding city or municipal authorities of the action it has taken. Okay? Now, what if walang ginawa ang Sangguniang Panlalawigan? Wala siyang ginawa, hindi niya rin pinasa sa provincial prosecutor or provincial attorney. Wala talaga siyang ginawa after it has been transmitted by the secretary. Ano yung mangyari? So, if there is no action taken by the Sangguniang Panlalawigan within 30 days after it has been submitted, the same shall be presumed consistent with the law and therefore it is presumed valid. Okay? So, yan. Now, balikan natin yung sa barangay. Okay, di ba? Sabi natin, with respect to barangay ordinances, kailangan i-transmit ng sangguniang barangay yung kanilang approved ordinances doon sa sangguniang panlungsod or sangguniang bayan. Okay? The issue here, the same. Whether or not the said ordinance is consistent with law and city or municipal ordinances. Now, kapag umabot yan siya or kapag na-transmit na yung approved barangay ordinance sa sangguniang panlungsod or sangguniang bayan, binibigyan ng batas ng 30 days also ang sangguniang panlungsod or sangguniang bayan to review the said approved barangay ordinance. Can the sangguniang panlalawigan or sangguniang panlungsod or sangguniang bayan, can they delegate the power of review to a city lawyer or city prosecutor like what we learned in section 56? The law is silent about it. Okay? The law is silent about it. Pwedeng hindi, pwede siguro. Kasi hindi naman talaga binawal. Silent lang siya. Okay? So, ang sinabi dyan, same period, 30 days from receipt. If the sangguniang panlungsod or sangguniang bayan, as the case may be, finds the barangay ordinances inconsistent with law or city or municipal ordinances, then what should the sangguniang panlungsod or sangguniang bayan do? It shall, within 30 days from receipt thereof, return the same with its comments and recommendations to the sangguniang barangay concerned for adjustment, for amendment, or for modification. In which case, please take note, this is not related to Section 56 anymore. Section 57 ang ito makikita. In which case, the effectivity of the barangay ordinance is suspended until such time as the revision called for is effected. Okay? Now, once it is declared null and void or suspended, you cannot enforce the said law, even if it has already been published. Okay? Any attempt to enforce any ordinance or any resolution approving the local development plan and public investment program after the disapproval thereof shall be sufficient ground for the suspension or dismissal of the official or employee concerned. Okay? So, once it is approved, masasabi ba nating effective na yung ordinance or resolution? balikan natin yung basic. Approval, enactment, and effectivity are different concepts. Okay? So, ibang usapin ang effectivity. Balikan nyo talaga yung Tanyada versus Rovera. Balikan nyo talaga yung Article 2 ng Civil Code. So, with respect to local laws, okay, Section 59 is the answer. Unless otherwise stated in the ordinance or the resolution approving the local development plan and public investment program, the same shall take effect after 10 days. From the date a copy thereof is posted in a bulletin board at the entrance of the provincial capital or city, municipal, or barangay hall, as the case may be, and in at least 2 other conspicuous places in the local government unit concerned. So ano bang ibig sabihin niyan? Kailangan ba talagang i-publish siya in a newspaper of general circulation or in an official gazette? Section 59 did not really require that. Although publication pa rin ang mangyayari, pero hindi necessary na sa newspaper. Okay? Section 59 is just saying na it must be posted in a bulletin board at the entrance of the provincial capital or city, municipal, or barangay hall. Plus, it must also be posted in at least 2 other conspicuous places in the local government unit concerned. And you post it 10 days. After the 10-day period has lapsed, it becomes effective. Who has the duty to post it? It is the duty of the secretary of the sanggunian concerned. Okay? Ang secretary rin yung may trabaho na mag-transmit, di ba, for approval. So, siya rin yung may trabaho na mag-post. Okay? So, the secretary to the sanggunian concerned shall cause the posting of an ordinance or resolution in the bulletin board at the entrance of the provincial capital and the city, municipal, or barangay hall in at least 2 conspicuous places in the local government unit concerned, not later than 5 days after the approval thereof. The text of the ordinance or resolution shall be disseminated and posted in Filipino or English and in the language or dialect understood by the majority of the people in the local government unit concerned. And the secretary to the sanggunian shall record such fact in a book kept for the purpose, stating the dates of approval and the date of the posting. The gist of all ordinances with penal sanctions shall be published. Ito, with respect to ordinances with penal sanctions, this is the time that you have to publish it. It's not enough anymore to post, but publish it in a newspaper of general circulation within the province where the local legislative body concerned belongs. In the absence of any newspaper of general circulation within which the province, posting of such ordinances shall be made in all municipalities and cities of the province where the sanggunian of origin is situated. In the case of highly urbanized and independent component cities, the main features of the ordinance or resolution duly enacted or adopted shall, in addition to being posted, be published once in a local newspaper of general circulation within the city, provided that in the absence thereof, the ordinance or the resolution shall be published in any newspaper of general circulation. Okay, so you familiarize this. I believe that you will further appreciate this matter when you proceed to public corporations. Okay? When you reach 3rd year. Okay? So, that's it for now. We are done with all the subjects of construction, constitution, the statutes, and the ordinances. So I will see you on the next video lecture for another makeup session. God bless everyone and have a good day.